I'd like to welcome everybody. My name is Greg Hogan. I'm with the OSU Environmental Health and Safety Department. Today we're going to be discussing woodworking, the power tools, the safe use. The objectives for today include safe operation of tools in woodworking, safety rules, safe use of drills, types of sanders, different types of saws, injury causes, and personal protective equipment or PPE. The woodworking power tools we'll be covering include the cordless drills and drivers, the corded drills, the jigsaw, orbital sander, the dual action sander, the bandsaw, sliding compound miter box saw, radial arm saw, table saw, and the scroll saw. There's some very basic rules anytime you're dealing with any type of equipment, particularly in the woodworking industry. Always wear safety glasses. Always secure the work piece. Always unplug the tool or remove battery before adjusting, changing blades, or even the bits. Always keep two hands 2 inches from the cutter or even the blade itself, and always use two hands on tools. Always remove ties, loose clothing, hair, or even jewelry. Never cut used wood containing nails or screws. Just basic safety rules to consider there. Here's some potential hazards. The first thing we want to talk about is flying particulates. Why is it so important? The potential, once again, the cutting action from the blade, once again, may throw wood, chips, splinters, or even broken saw teeth. Additional safety measures include maintaining sharp blades, wearing hearing protection, safety glasses, face shields are required. Remove any cracked saw blades from the service. And that's actually noted in OSHA standard 1910.213 S7 is where you'll find that information as far as cracked saw blades are concerned. Let's talk about the cordless drill. Make sure the chuck is tight and the bit is properly installed. As far as the uses of the drill or the driver, drilling and driving screws. The driver, once again, is for driving screws directly into the wood itself. Always use the lowest speed setting when driving screws, and always use the highest speed when drilling wood. If you look at the tool directly in front of you, that's a classic example of a battery-operated drill. As you can see there, the different parts of the drill include the keyless chuck. Once again, this one you just hold with your hand, you tighten it up. It does have a clutch. It gives you different types of parameter readings where you can actually make that adjustment. It's also got a variable speed trigger, is what's referred to as. And then, of course, on the very top of this particular tool, it's going to have a speed switch. Normally right here in the middle, you'll usually find what they call the reverse switch. And, of course, at the very bottom is the battery source. Let's go to the next one as far as the corded drill. Make sure chuck is tight and bit is properly installed. Must use a chuck key. Always use the lowest speed setting when drilling metal. Always use a high speed when drilling wood. And never pick up the tool by the cord. Here's an example of a keyed corded drill that you may find out there. It does have a reversing switch on this particular model. It's up underneath the housing itself. You also have a variable speed switch. You can also lock that speed switch directly into a locked position. And down here at the very bottom, once again, this is the chuck key. The chuck key is essentially the one that is inserted directly into the chuck itself. And that's one where you actually tighten or loosen if you're putting any type of drill bits in that particular corded drill. Here's an example of a keyless chuck. Once again, you will notice it does not have a key with it, but when you do tighten up this particular one, you actually hold onto the keyless chuck itself as you start to make the tightening for either the drill bit that you're going to be placing in that particular location. Once again, it does have the reverse switch, just like the corded one did. And of course, you come down here, the variable speed trigger, that's located there. And of course, you got the trigger lock. So these are some examples between the chuck and the chuckless portion of a drill. Jigsaws. Safety basic information on this include always keep the base firmly against the working piece, always secure work piece, always use two hands, hold the jigsaw, and always make relief cuts when cutting a small radius. And one other thing too is never pick up the tool by the cord. Always use the handle to pick up the cord. Back up. Always use the handle to pick up the tool or the jigsaw. Once again, you do not want to pick up the tool by the cord. Here's a basic jigsaw right here. Kind of gives you an idea. At the very top, once again, it does have you a little latch mechanism you raise up, and once again, it does what? It does remove the blade that you're going to find in a jigsaw. It also has a trigger lock to it. It also has the trigger speed and control switch right here. It's also got what they call the orbital control mechanism. It's built on this particular one located here. And at the very bottom, the portion of the jigsaw that actually gets placed in the woods known as the base. This very bottom part right here is referred to as the base of the jigsaw. We get to the next one, we're going to talk a little bit about sanders. These are all things you'll use in woodworking. The dual action or the random orbital sander, always make sure sandpaper is securely attached. Always keep the sander flat on the workpiece. Always allow weight of the sander to do the work. Never use heavy pressure to speed up the sander. Always use the correct sandpaper grit. And once again, never hold the tool by the cord. And that's for the DA, or some people call it dual action. Or it may be the random orbital sander. Here's an example right here of a small DA sander. Once again, this particular one is battery powered. Very, very common to see in today's workplace a lot of battery powered tools being used in the woodworking industry. This particular one right here, it does show once again it'll always have an on or off switch. It'll also have some type of variable speed. Do remember this as far as variable speed switch is concerned, that the higher the number, the faster the base or the sanding pad at the very bottom is going to be turning anytime that you're doing any type of sanding. Here's an example right here of what they call a random orbital sander. It does have an on and off switch right here. If you'll notice on this particular version, it does have a padded palm placement at the very top of the sander. Down here at the very bottom, this particular one right here, way it's designed, actually uses spring clips to actually secure the sanding pad directly in place. So once again, it kind of gives you another example of it's still a sander, but it does have, this particular one uses square pads or square sanding pads, where the one that had the circular uses circular sanding pads. The random orbital sander, once again, always make sure your sandpaper is securely attached. Always keep sander flat on the workpiece. Always allow the weight of the sander to do the work, and never put any heavy pressure to speed up the sander. And once again, the other thing too is always use the correct sandpaper grit. And the other most important thing is never hold the tool by the cord. Different types of sandpaper for power sanders. You can get what they call sheet sandpaper. This right here is usually for a dual action sander. It uses a quarter of a full sheet of the sandpaper itself. And you can also get these where they're actually pre-cut for you as far as the dual action sanders, as far as the sheets of paper are concerned. On the 5-inch, once again, is considered a disc sandpaper. It may be Velcro. Once again, it kind of has that sticky effect to it when it's on the back of the paper, and also on the back of the base of the sander itself, or it may be a hook and loop. And the other thing too is it may actually be pressure sensitive type of adhesive that may be used on those. In other words, it's got glue adhesion material on the back of the sandpaper. Let's talk about bandsaws real quickly. Always keep hands at least 2 inches away from the blade. Always allow the blade to get up to speed before cutting. Always make sure the blade is not in contact with workpiece when starting. And never allow your fingers to be in the line of the blade path of travel. Never rush or force the cut. Always wait until the blade has stopped to leave the machine. Always make sure that any adjustments are made with the machine off. Never back out of a long or even sharp cut with the machine running. This example of a bandsaw right here, as you can see, it does have an on and off switch. Down here at the very bottom is the table portion. And one thing I want everybody to keep in mind, these bandsaws, they can have all kinds of additional features. They may be a very base type of a model. One thing that they will have on them is what they refer to as the blade guard. And the blade guard is adjustable. It will move up and down. This is your stock material, whatever you're cutting out down here on the flat table portion. This right here, this guard actually slide down, or you can move it up to fit whatever thickness of the board that you're going to be cutting. So it is a safety guard. It's been added far as protecting you as the end user of that particular bandsaw. The sliding compound miter box saw. This is one that's very handy, particularly if you're doing a lot of trim type work, or it could actually be cutting different angles with your rough end cuts, as far as the planning stage is concerned. Always keep hands at least 4 inches away from the blade. Always allow the blade to get up to speed before cutting. Then just make sure the blade is not in contact with the workpiece when starting. And then two is always lock the table and bevel before using the machine. Always start the machine in the up position. Always cut the workpiece by pushing the saw away from the operator. Always keep your hands on the largest table when cutting angled miners. And the other thing too is always remove scraps of wood from the table. This is a pretty classic example of what a battery-powered miter box saw looks like. If you will notice, this does have one where you can cut different bevels. That's one of the good features about these type of saws. This bottom portion right here where the wood actually will rest, lay down on, particularly if you're cutting any type of angles, this is known as the table itself. This large piece at the very back of the table is actually what they call the fence. Okay, the fence is very important, and the fact is it's always kept as level and as straight as it possibly can, because if it's not, you get basically uneven cuts. At the very front of here is actually how you adjust to get your angles with whichever angle you're wanting to go with, and those will actually be marked down here on the very bottom. Have a numerical rating system as far as degrees are concerned. And this particular one, you can either move it all the way to the left, you can move it to the right, or you can select different degrees as far as your angle cutment is required. Here's another example of one right here, and this happens to be a electric type of a powered miter box saw. If you look at the very once again, this does give you the depth cut. This is the table portion right here. Your fence is still the same, no difference there. You come on down a little bit further, we'll have a locking collar on it. So once you do make the adjustment with the table lock handle, you basically loosen this up just a little bit. You'll push it down. You'll make the degree of the angle that you're wanting to choose. When you bring it back up, you'll actually lock into place. And you can also, once again, lock it so it does not become movable. At the very top of this particular one, you do have an on and off button, which is very important to remember on this type of a tool. Let's go to the radial arm saw. This is kind of a unique saw. It's kind of a versatile saw. You can use it for different things. Always keep your hands at least 6 inches away from the blade. Always allow the blade to get to speed before cutting. Always make sure that the blade is not in contact with the workpiece when starting, and never allow your fingers to be in the line with the blade. Keep your hands away from the cutting area as much as you possibly can. When you go to the next one right here, this is never rush or force the cut. Once again, if you have to go through slowly, there's no problem with that. Because when you start to rush a cut, particularly with wood, a lot of times it may have what they refer to as a kickback, or it may get to the point where the blade becomes pinched and ever what kind of a board that you're going to be cutting, and it may start bouncing up and down the wood material, which can also do what? Cause you some serious harm. Always make the adjustment with the machine turned off, and always return the saw all the way to the back of the arm itself. So just basic safety rules to remember there. with a radial arm saw. Only use a radial arm saw once again to cross cut lumber. Always operate the radial arm saw with your left hand. Always keep your left hand on the right side of the blade. And the other thing too is always keep the workpiece on the right side of the blade as well. So here's an example of what a radial arm saw looks like right here. This sticker one, once again, you will notice that the blade is guarded. You said, Greg, what about all this towards the very back? The very front portion of where all the action is going to take place, it is actually guarded in this front portion. You also have some type of a handle system that you can actually grab hold of. Once again, you can move it or pull it towards you. At the very top is going to have your on and off switches to turn on or shut down the machinery itself. And usually there's some type of a tabletop that you're having to work off of with your material, whatever that material may be. The table saw safety training. We do have table saws that are out there. Just some basic facts to remember on this. Table saw is used for straight sawing. Depending on the blade, they could cut either use cross cutting, or they could actually have what they call a rip blade. And here's the other thing too is you always make sure that you always cut with the grain of the wood itself. Don't ever try to cut across from it. Try to cut as much as you possibly can with the grain of the wood. Blade guard should rest on the wood, pretty much just like you see right here. This right here is kind of like what's referred to as a floating guard. You run your material directly up through to the blade itself. This guard raises up just a little bit, but it still allows your material to what? Pass on through, go through the blade, go through the cutting, and once again, the blade should stick up no more than 1/4 inch above the wood, and make sure the rip fence is locked into place. This rip fence over here is very important also. This is a good way to actually keep your cut straight. But one thing I want to tell folks, and this is something everybody needs to kind of remember on this, that when you're looking at the far as the width of material that you're going to be cutting, make sure you always measure from the tip of the blade right here over to the fence. You're going to measure it on the front side of the blade and also measure it on the back side. That way you know 100% for sure that that rip fence is what? It's lined up accurately. Make sure the rip fence is locked into position or into place. Lock out the saw before changing the blade. And the other thing too is don't cut with a dull blade. Cutting with a dull blade is probably the worst thing you can do, because here's what happens. That blade is fairly dull to begin with. You come in, you start running a piece of wood through there, it's going to get a little bit more duller. The problem with that is if you have a dull blade and you're trying to produce a cut on whatever wood that you're cutting through, if you can start smelling burning wood, that means you do have what? A dull blade. So you need to get the blade either sharpened, or you need to replace the blade that you do have. And that is on a table saw, miter box saw, or any of those type of saws that we have just covered previously. Operator involvement. Adjust the height and the blade of the angle of the blade. Push the stock into the blade. Use the guide to maintain a straight cut. Self-feed or power table saws are equipped with rollers or a conveyor system. Hold the lumber and also force feed it into the saw blade itself. Sounds kind of almost like a mechanism of some type that they're actually installing on the saws themselves. All right, let's talk a little about scroll saw safety training. Scroll saws are kind of a unique type of a saw. The easy way to remember this, you use a lot for precision type of cutting. A lot of your cutouts or a lot of your decorations, they actually may use a scroll saw as opposed to maybe a hand saw. Ensure the blade is installed vertically with the teeth facing down. Make sure the blade guard is securely closed and tightly fastened. And then thing too is adjust the hold down to match the thickness of the stock before being cut. This will prevent the wood from moving up and down with the blade. Okay, if you have a blade that's dull, if you have a blade that has any type of a bend to it, you're going to get crooked, and it almost smells like burning wood vapors coming off that particular cut itself. Maintain a distance of at least 2 inches from the blade while cutting stock. If you're not familiar with what the word stock means, basically it's the material that you're using. Always keep your fingers to the side of the blade and never in front of it. Ensure the scroll saw is turned off before making any type of adjustments. Injury causes. These are some things that cause injury, particularly those who may be working on any type of power tools. Um, Inexperienced operator, that's probably going to be one of the number ones you're going to find out there. They say, yeah, I've done this before, but actually when they get out there, they're still going to need practice. Improper training, that's the other injury causes right there. Inaccurate or missing guards. Employee taking shortcuts or even rushing. If you work with any type of wood tools or any type of tools in general, make sure you slow down your pace to sustain the type of work that you're putting out. Because this next one right here is distracted operators, such as a cell phone or even substance abuse, for an example. In other words, you're distracted, you're trying to get information off your phone, you're up in the air, you're trying to do some type of building or have some type of a craft that you're trying to take up at that time. Substance abuse, once again, is the other leading cause of injuries. It can be from all different types of basically street drugs is what you'll find, or it can be as simple as maybe a prescription that maybe the local physician has authorized you to have for a period of time. But these are the most common causes of injuries. Inexperienced operator, for those of you who's been through my forklift training class, one of the things I always tell y'all at the very end is to make sure you thoroughly practice with the horse if you're not going to take her. So that's just what him and his spouse had to do. But when you come down here and you're looking at different types of injuries, causes, improper training, inadequate, or even missing guards. If you take a guard off a piece of equipment, that guard needs to be returned back to its specific manufacturing date and all the equipment that was installed on that machinery. Employee taking shortcuts or even getting rushing, distracted operator, cell phone, substance abuse. The loose clothing comes up again. The jewelry, unsecured hair. If you happen to be working around anything that twists or anything that turns, and this comes down to injury causes, make sure that you do remember this. If it twists or if it turns, it's going to start what? Static. Some type of a static electricity is going to be formed. Now, here's what you want to be careful with. The loose clothing, the jewelry, and the unsecured hair, once again, they get pulled in. A lot of times they cannot get loose. Because once it starts that wrapping effect, it just continues on and on and on. And that's one of the reasons you'll see a lot of these PTO shafts that's out there on the market actually has a plastic cover over the top of them. It's just another means of safety. So I did want to kind of briefly mention that. The point of hazard, or what they call the point of operation is exactly where the material is going to be cut out. Injuries can occur if an operator's hands slip while feeding the stock into the saw blade, or if the operator holds his or her hands too close to the blade while cutting. The operator also can be injured, basically removing scrap or finished pieces of stock from the table. That's where your gloves come in, folks. That's why it's very important to make sure that you have the appropriate type of gloves for the appropriate type of task that you are assigned to do. Here's what they consider as a point of operation. They give you some different examples that are out there. You will notice it does have guards to it. You say, Greg, where am I going to find these trees? Where I live at don't have any trees. Well, you may want to figure out some other type of a shade system you can actually come up with. So, as far as the point of operation is concerned, enclose the portion of the rip saws, crosscut saws above the table with a self-adjusting guard is shown. The guard must adjust to the thickness of the metal being cut and remain intact with it. Hinge the guard so that the blades can be changed easily. Okay. If you'll notice on the very far left and also in the middle here, those examples of push sticks. I don't know if y'all ever seen those or not. They say, well, they kind of look cheap as far as the design is concerned. But actually, folks, this is one of the main things you want to keep in mind. It does what? It keeps your hands moved away from the turning action of the blade. Now, let's go to the other part over here. Use a push stick for small pieces of wood and also for pushing stock past the blade. These little push sticks, you can make them by yourself, or you can go down and buy some pre-made ones. Just depends on what you're looking for. If you take care of them, guys, they will last a long, long, long time. This particular type of a device to actually push the wood on through. So that's point of operation. Let's go to the other part. Additional safety measures include keep hands out of the line of the cut at all times. Attach a brake to the monitor's arbor to stop the saw from basically coasting after the power has been shut off. A good example of that is you go out and you can turn off a table saw, no problem. But if you're not paying attention, folks, that blade's going to still keep spinning out there, even though you have unplugged it, and it shouldn't have any power going to it. So always keep that in mind as well. Let's go into the next part right here. Other moving parts, talk about potential hazards. If the operator makes contact with the blade beneath the table or with the power transmission apparatus, if it's not enclosed, you're going to do what? You're going to feel some type of either shock, electrocution, or whatever that particular situation may be. The solution: to always guard the portion of the blade below the table. Protect operators from possible contact when reaching underneath the table. And then thing too is always guard the power transmission apparatus. Belts, pulleys, chains, sprockets are just some basic examples of things to look for as far as moving parts are concerned. I don't know how many of y'all have ever heard of what they call the kickback. Kickback is very common to see, particularly in the industry where they do a lot of cuts with wood. Kickbacks basically result from the blade height is not correct or if the blade is not maintained properly. The kickbacks are more likely to occur when ripening rather than cross-cutting. The other thing too is kickbacks can always occur if safe operation or safeguards are not used and or poor quality lumber is cut. This is what you use rip saws for. Use as a spreader to prevent material from squeezing the kickback or kicking back during kickback during roping. Use of anti-kickback fingers to hold the stock in the event that the saw backs, the material starts backing out. Maintain sharpened blades. Another thing too is wear kickback apron if you have such as that available. So here's some other additional basic safety information. Use the proper blade for the cutting. They do make different types of rigids that's actually cut into those blades, different depths, different widths, things like that are going to be covered. Do not use a cross-country blade for ripping. Okay, rotate the saw at the speed specified by the manufacturer. Leave sufficient clearance for stock. Stand inside of the blade to avoid injury due to kickback. And the other thing too is guide the wood to be cut parallel to the rip fence to minimize the potential for kickback and avoid cross-cutting. Long boards on table saws, consider hand pressure is required close to the table saw, and the boards create a safety hazard to the individuals or to the people. So what's some of the safety rules to follow? We cover different ones that you're going to find out there in the industry. Using power tools correctly, that's the other most important thing that we have covered. Operator personal safety, in other words, are they working in a safe environment for the type of job task that they're doing? And is there any other personal safety? And other thing too is kickbacks is the other one to kind of avoid out there. We did come up with a facts and questions sheet, just a few little short questions here, kind of help you out on this. Can I use a warp saw blade on the table saw? Well, the answer to that's going to be no. You say, well, Greg, why not? Why can't I not use a blade that I previously have? Well, what it comes down to on this one is, can I use a warp blade on a table saw? it's going to give you uneven cuts. The other thing too is it may not cut off everything that's in line for during that time. So those are some things to kind of look for there. And why does the wood smell burnt after cutting or cutting a board? Remember at the very beginning we talked about dull circular saw blades for an example, or maybe table saws. This is what we're looking for here. Don't use warped blades, please. Get the blades replaced. Not only that, if it's warped, you get a lot of more vibration coming through the handle. But the other most important thing is, as far as after using a DA sander, why are my fingers numb? Okay. Well, one thing about the DA sanders that I did not mention is very important is they will cause your hands to go numb. And a lot of times what happens is gentlemen usually wake up in the middle of the night and they're shaking their hands. They're going, what has just happened to me? What's going on? Well, here's the thing. If you're out using a DA sander all day, why are my fingers still numb? Why? Because here's the thing. It comes down to the type of tool that you're using. If you look at a lot of the tools that are manufactured nowadays that's on the market, most of the tools we have will have some type of plastic handle or some type of plastic housing. He said, well, what's that for? Why do they put such as that out there? Can I leave the miter box saw plugged in into the electrical outlet while changing the blade? And the answer is what? The answer to that is no. Any type of blade, any type of drill bit, if you have to remove it, doesn't matter if it's from a cordless drill or if it's from a wired, let's say a Sawzall for an example, make sure that you do unhook or shut off the power, please, and have exclusive control over that cord at all times. Can you leave the miter box plugged in to the electrical outlet while changing the blade? And the answer to that is no. We don't want to have any sudden, unexpected startups is what we're trying to avoid. So with that said, hopefully y'all gained some good information out of this particular slide presentation. Just a little fast recap on what our department does. We do take care of the fire protection and engineering. We also take care of life safety and emergency preparedness, environmental compliance. We got groups that does lab safety, occupational health, and medical surveillance. We also have those that does materials management, industrial hygiene, chemical hygiene, and the other most important thing to remember is safety training. We can be reached at the University Health Services Center building in room 002, or give us a call at 744-7241, or you can send us an email ehs@okstate.edu, and feel free to browse around on our website. It's http semicolon //ehs.okstate.edu. If you'll type that information in, it'll take you directly to our webpage. And we got a lot of good information that's been put on that particular website. So, do we have any questions any of y'all may have during this time? Well, if not, I do thank everybody for checking in today and actually going through the woodworking power tool safety presentation. And like I say, if you have any questions or concerns while you're here at Oklahoma State University, whether it's a job that you're doing or whether it's a job that someone else is doing, and you don't think it's safe, just give us a call, please, or send us a quick email. I do thank everybody for joining in today. And if you have any questions, just give us a call. Thank you.